Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. My hope is you're already watching us on YouTube. If you're not, you should. Like, subscribe, leave some comments that are only marginally mean. You can be a little mean. We'll have some fun with it. Good show lined up for you today. Rising Report happens on Thursdays. Looking forward to a discussion with the starting quarterback at the University of Utah, a guy who we think is going to be the starting quarterback for this Oklahoma State game. Eric Weddle scheduled to join us as well, and Nate Orchard, the mayor of Sac Lake City, our friend from Advanced Window Products, will swing by to talk a little football. I'm getting a little bit nervous for the game. I'm getting a little like it feels good to have a game like this in week 4. I've told you all preseason long why this is the right ramp up, why Utah had exactly the runway that I think they needed in order to get to this exact spot. It hasn't gone in an ideal fashion so far. Cam Rising, who joins us later on the show, Cam Rising has only played, 3.5 quarters out of 3 games. That's not great. It's not ideal. There are important targets that you need to get more involved on this offense. Dorian Singer, he had a decent game against Utah State. You need him to have a more active role in this offense. I'm going to maintain that. Damian Alford still hasn't been much. I still think Micah Pittman is capable. That's a guy you got to get the ball in his hands more often. And I think that chemistry with your quarterback is as important as anything else. So I would like to see that developed on field, not just in practice. There's a reason I'm beginning the conversation with that wide receiver group, because the Oklahoma State secondary, as we have discussed this week, is vulnerable. And a vulnerable secondary means that your wide receivers against man coverage especially should be able to eat, as the cool kids say. But if you haven't established yourself alongside those receivers or with those receivers, it can get more difficult. And it gets even more difficult when you're talking about those receivers having the chemistry and the timing with 2 or 3 different quarterbacks instead of just the guy. And then it gets even more difficult when there's no definitive answer as to whether or not that guy is going to play, and if he does play, is going to be 100%. So there are challenges for this University of Utah football team as they head to Stillwater, the internally created challenges. And then, of course, there is the Oklahoma State Cowboys, who are going to try and throw as many challenges as they can at you. So I'm getting a little bit nervous, but it's good to be in a position. Pressure is a privilege, as they say. Utah is in a pressure-packed situation heading to their first Big 12 conference game against a team that is ranked almost as high as they are, is thought of in a very similar light on the national landscape, and quite frankly, is a team that feels they have the tools to beat you. The line on this one has swung all over the place this week, and I can't help but think that is at least partially, let's be honest, it is probably exclusively tied to the question about Cam Rising's availability and his health. Oklahoma State started as a 3-point favorite, and then it cut in half to now they're 1.5-point favorites, and then suddenly Utah's a favorite. And now, as of 5 minutes ago, when I made sure to freshen it up and look at it, according to the DraftKings Sportsbook, and that's the one that a lot of people are using now because it's ubiquitous across the country, not legal here in Utah and probably never going to be legal here in Utah, but legal in a lot of places, Utah, 2.5-point underdog. That's a pick 'em. Actually, you get 3 points for home field advantage. So there's a feeling out there that Utah is good enough to beat this Oklahoma State team on the road. And that reflects the overarching opinion of what Utah football is on the national landscape, going all the way back to the early preseason. Utah is going to be the power player. Utah is going to be the conference championship favorite. Utah is going to be the highest ranked team. As of right now, that is the case. And as of right now, that is largely the case because of what we've seen, even in the absence of Cam Rising. Defense is playing good football without being perfect. The offensive line is playing good football without being perfect. Your running game that so many of us were wringing our hands about in the offseason, your running game has established itself pretty darn well. Mekhi Bernard and that offensive line, although they took some time to get going against Utah State, and although they have yet to face a real stout defensive front, they've gotten some work done and made you say, all right, well, yes, it'd be much better to have a clear picture on Cam Rising, and it'd be much better to have a clear picture on how good this passing offense can be. We know that Utah football does two things well every single year. They defend, and they run the football well. And so far through 3 games, that has been the case. We need to get to a spot, and all of you thought that this year was going to be the year that you say more about Utah football than just that. You're going to say more about Utah football and its offense than, hey, they'll beat you up, they'll punch you in the mouth, they'll grind it out. All of us thought this year was the explosive plays year. All of us thought that this year was the best pass-catching options year. And I'm not ready to say that it isn't, because those guys are still in the rooms. Those guys are still practicing. But we are through the first one quarter, the first 25% of the regular season, and we still don't have a wide receiver who has burst out, broken onto the scene, established himself, been the man. I thought there was going to be at least 2. Hasn't happened yet. Doesn't mean that it won't happen. But we saw something unfold yesterday in the sort of macro big picture sense for Utah football that is a reflection of this, a symptom of this, and perhaps an illustration of the greater issue and the greater problem around Utah and what it has been reputationally. Jerome Miles, local kid at Corner Canyon High School, which has become not just a local powerhouse, but a national recruiting powerhouse. Eric Kerr is one of the best coaches in the state at any level. I'm talking about he's good enough to be a coach at your favorite university. Maybe not the head coach right away, but as soon as his kids are done with school at Corner Canyon, BYU or Utah needs to come calling and get that guy on the staff. That's not the point I wanted to make, though. Jerome Miles pulled the okey doke and reached for a Utah hat as he was making his commitment public yesterday. Reached for the Utah hat and said, whoop, just kidding. Grabbed the USC cap, and he's committed to USC. Now, I know USC getting a commitment from a guy who's still got more than half of a high school season to play and 17 other teams that are in the picture, and he's already committed and decommitted before. I know that USC should not be feeling 100% confident about this commitment, but Utah fans were feeling some type of way about what Jerome Miles did by faking out the Utah thing and then committing to USC. And again, even though they're unrelated in terms of the results on the field this year for Utah and what's going on in the recruiting picture, they're not operating in a vacuum, those two things. Do I think that if Dorian Singer or Damian Alford or Money Parks or Micah Pittman had, 4 touchdowns through 3 games this year, if any one of those guys was the feature player in this offense, that Utah would have had a better chance of getting Jerome Miles? I don't know. I don't know the kid well enough to tell you that. But would it have helped to sell him that? Absolutely. Do I think Utah's ever going to get a kid like this, local or not? High 4-star, 5-star wide receiver? Because he is a 5-star on some recruiting services. I saw ESPN has him ranked in their in their top. He's, I think, the number 5 receiver in the ESPN rankings, but he's a high 4-star in their rankings. And again, those ratings are what they are. The recruiting services do a good job, and some of their predictive qualities are excellent, and some of them not so much. I've seen Jerome Miles play. I think he's a great player. I have concerns about his durability because if you're getting hurt in high school, you're probably going to get hurt in college. And that's not any commentary against the young man. It's just the reality of the situation. Injury prone in the high school ranks does not typically translate to durability in the college ranks. Okay? I'm saying that partially to make myself and you feel better as Utah football fans about missing out on a local kid, an explosive prospect, a guy who went against some of the best high school players in the country at IMG Academy and had dominant performance. Great game. I'm not telling you don't need that kid or you don't want that kid. I am here to tell you that you cannot separate Utah's ability to create options with the roster they have on the edges and their ability to get future stars at the wide, or what we project to be future stars at the wide receiver position. Those things are not unrelated, especially when your competition for those services are Ohio State and Ole Miss and Florida, and in this case, USC. USC puts more wide receivers into the NFL than Utah does. Utah features the wide receivers in their offense more than Utah does, and that was true even before Lincoln Riley showed up. USC is a place that if your son is playing wide receiver and that offer comes in and you think he's a Sunday player, you go, yeah, that's the offer we wanted. Also, even if you don't think he's a Sunday player, USC is throwing more money at these guys as high school recruits than Utah is. And until that gets figured out with this revenue sharing thing, which is 6 months down the line probably, so it's not the end of the world, that's going to be the case. Utah is more likely to get a high 4-star, 5-star recruit at any position other than wide receiver, even if it's a local kid. A local wide receiver who's the highest rated guy ever out of the state of Utah is less likely to come to Utah because he's a wide receiver. If this was a corner, if Jerome Miles was a corner, I would be sitting here saying this is a bad decision for him to go to USC. And USC's put plenty of corners into the NFL, but nobody develops corners like Utah does. Again, I don't know Jerome Miles. I don't know his family. I wish him well. I want every local prospect to achieve their dreams in sports and beyond. The world is in front of you. You're cashing checks that were not an option for people even 7 years older than you in the college football world. That's unbelievable. What an opportunity. I applaud you for everything that you've done so far except for the okie doke. You shouldn't do the mean thing where you fake out the Utah fans. I understand why you do it when the cameras are on you and you're looking for attention. I get it. I'm getting on 2409, the text line. It's not about the style of play. It's all about the stack USC threw at him. Okay, fine. But guess what? That stack gets thrown by USC because of the style of play, because of what USC does. Utah is never going to throw that kind of wide money at a wide receiver when Kyle Whittingham's your coach. And we have to be okay with it. Missing out on Jerome Miles came across my radar yesterday. I don't pay attention to recruiting like most people do because even some of the best laid plans, even some of the highest rated guys just don't work out. And we have too many stories, not only at Utah, but at BYU, at Utah State, at all these other places where an under-recruited guy becomes something magical.
Yeah, we'll see. All this means is that Utah's got to continue to find ways to win without the top 5-star, even 4-star wide receiver. And the good news is they've done that.
Here's a question I'm going to put out on the poll. I haven't put it up yet. I put some poll questions up today. I asked about the style of game you think we're going to have in Oklahoma State. Is it going to be a low-scoring slugfest, a high-scoring shootout? I actually had that as the poll by itself. And then I got a couple of comments like, well, what about a comfortable Utah win? Because that's what I think is going to happen. So I added that as an option. And then I put Cowboys win easily. And shockingly enough, James, here on the home of the Utes, no one so far has voted for Oklahoma State winning easily as their option. And the BYU fans
Until
have not
now,
yet weighed in.
Just kidding. I'm not voting for that just to be the first one.
I put a poll question out there.
Shocking, though.
Will Cam Rising start the game against Oklahoma State? Yes or no? Simple question. I'm going to put another one out there. And you can help me try to phrase this, James, but do we really believe, do we think that Utah football is going to graduate beyond being a developmental program? And when I say developmental program, that's complimentary. I'm not saying in any pejorative sense you're a developmental program. I'm saying, do we really believe that Utah football is going to graduate beyond being a program that gets guys who are not 1A. They're not option 1A. They're option 1B for a lot of these, like the USCs, the Washingtons. Because Utah wins recruiting battles. They've done it in certain places, in certain instances, against Texas. Texas wanted Lander Barton desperately. Ohio State wanted Clark Phillips. Cam Rising was at Texas. Like, you've taken players away from powerhouse programs before, but you are a developmental program at your core. And I think Utah's always going to be. I really believe that. I don't think that Utah's ever going to be the heavy hitter with the NIL funds. I don't think Utah's ever going to be the heavy hitter reputationally to have the same kind of glitz and glam and flash as USC. Especially if we're talking about a wide receiver. And if Utah wants to start being in that conversation more seriously for other guys, not just local guys like Jerome Miles is the local guy, if you want to be getting the Micah Pittmans of the world before they hit the transfer portal twice, if you want to get Dorian Singer before he hits the transfer portal twice, if you want a Marvin Harrison Jr. or a Emeka Egbuka, or you want a Jackson Smith and Jigba, if you want some of these individuals, you have to have your identity be more tuned in with the wide receiver position having success. And that is a different style of football. That's unrecognizable football for Utah fans in a lot of ways. Utah has put a bunch of cool receivers into the NFL. Tim Patrick's career has been better in the NFL than it was at Utah, oddly enough. Steve Smith, Hall of Fame caliber player, wide receiver from the University of Utah.
And definitely a better NFL career than college career.
Absolutely.
He was really just a returner here, right?
And
he
look,
wasn't much of a pass catcher back then, right?
That was 3 coaches ago,
yeah,
right?
That was still Coach Mack.
That's a different era of Utah football. And so maybe we shouldn't cite that as a but if you're Jerome Miles and his family or any other high school wide receiving prospect in that family and you're getting an offer from Utah or you're getting an offer from USC and both of those offers come with 6-figure or even 7-figure dollars attached to them, then you look, but okay, all other things being equal, what about what's next? What about me being featured in this offense? What about me being the best version of myself as this particular position at the next level? And you can't compete with USC on that front. You can't. Because right now, USC gets to look at any family, any parents, any player, and say, who's Utah's leading receiver in so far this season? What position does that guy play? Right?
Yeah.
And there are 70 schools in the country that the answer to that question is wide receiver. Right now, that's not the case at Utah. And guess what? I'm not telling you Andy Ludwig and Kyle Whittingham should be doing anything a different way. That's what Utah's got right now. Utah has a better tight end room than anybody else in Division I football. Utilize them.
By the way, I mean, I don't know for sure. Michigan's top pass catcher probably was a wide receiver under Jim Harbaugh, but they just won a national championship not really featuring their wideouts very much, being more of a run team, being more of a and probably throwing more to wide receivers than tight ends like Utah does, but not in a way that they're dominating offensively. So it shouldn't be all bad news that Utah under Andy Ludwig, under Kyle Whittingham, may never be this great wide receiver school.
And by the way, this is not just about being a wide receiver. It's partially about being a wide receiver because that's something that needs to get fixed at Utah, for lack of a better term. It needs to be developed a little bit more. You need to balance out this offense just a little bit more to get the wide receivers involved. If you want to win this Big 12 championship, you got to have Dorian Singer be part of things. You got to have Micah Pittman be part of things. Money Parks, I don't know if Damian Alford's going to be that guy this year. I don't know. But guess what? You got to get everyone more involved. And that's fine. I feel very comfortable saying that. But I'm all right if this year Brant Keithy's your leading wide receiver. If Dijon Stanley's that guy, I'm also okay with that. Someone's got to be the lead horse in the race, but the wide receiver position has to be more active in the Utah offense, not just in a gameplay perspective, but also in a recruiting perspective if you want to win battles like this one. And circling back to Jerome Miles and the reaction to Jerome Miles going to USC, if this was your child, you would tell him to do the same thing that he did. And it's also not the end of the world. We're in a different time in college football. If Jerome Miles goes to USC, gets the $1 million they're going to pay him or whatever, and says, I'm a little bit homesick.
Yeah, he can transfer.
Hey, Kyle Whittingham or Morgan Scalley, whoever's in charge at the time. Hey, you guys still have any money for me over there?
You're still interested, right?
And the answer is probably going to be yes. And he's like, all right, Mom, Dad, I'm coming home. So losing a recruiting battle here is not the end of the world.
It's not like it was when you lose out on a high school recruit. You get second chances. You get third chances at those guys nowadays, for sure. And Utah definitely needs to feature the wide receivers more. But I'm with you. They don't have to be Washington's offense last year to win and at the level they want to win at.
That's right.
And reach the goals that they have.
And look, we've got some text coming in about how, like, you know, USC just pays more. Yeah, they do. They offer more money than Utah does, regardless of what position you play. The discussion becomes more complicated and less obvious. The decision becomes less obvious. If you're talking about a defensive lineman, if you're talking about a defensive back, if you're talking about NFL prospects in general, Utah in the last decade has actually produced way more relative to their star rating than USC has, right? We know that. Utah's the overachievers in player development. USC has underachieved pretty drastically in player development. They're going to try and turn that around. This year seems like it's shaping up to be a pretty quality year for USC. Maybe Danton Lynn is the answer to Lincoln Riley's defensive woes, and that's good for everyone in Southern California. That sucks for the rest of us because I don't want to see USC be successful.
Good for our guy Alonzo, too.
But it becomes a more complicated discussion. Again, all of the things being equal, and maybe the offer isn't equal, but if you're a parent or a guardian or a mentor, a coach, high school coach of a kid who's just like, hey, man, Utah wants me to go play corner for them. They're offering me $700,000 in this NIL deal. USC wants me to play corner for them. They're offering me $900,000. That's not a small gap.
No.
But if I'm looking at the big picture, if I'm looking at the long-term play here, I still have an argument to make that, like, all right, well, what has Utah done with their DBs relative to what USC's done with their DBs? And I'm not telling you that USC has been devoid of NFL talent in the wide receiver room, or excuse me, in the DB room. They like one of my favorite players on my favorite team is a safety from USC, Talanoa Hufanga, underdrafted. Right, you get to tell all of these stories, but the conversation gets a lot more complicated at other positions with Utah. It's an easy decision if you're a wide receiver who has better offers to say, yeah, Utah's not the ideal spot for me. And at some point, I think Utah has to be able to flip that narrative. They have to be able to change that.
I was hoping, honestly, I had off-air conversations with Bill Riley and others about this. I was hoping that Dorian Singer would have an awesome year and that Jerome Miles would commit to Utah and that would turn in. And I was like, if Dorian Singer can have that close to 1,000-yard year that a lot of people were anticipating, and Jerome Miles commits to Utah, it could be like what we saw with the tight end room the last few years. All of a sudden going from Utah's not known for tight ends to being basically tight end U. I was kind of anticipating that. Start to the season for Dorian Singer has not been what was anticipated. He hasn't been featured as much. And now Jerome Miles not there. It certainly makes it look like, okay, well, the Utah not featuring their wide receivers, not being known for wide receivers, that reputation's probably going to continue for the next little bit.
I will say this. Isaac Wilson, if he continues to develop the way that we saw him take a jump in his one game as a starter.
With the way he throws the ball, yeah.
That's going to help. It's going to help a lot.
He could be the quarterback that maybe we see a bit of a turning of the corner, changing of the guard a little bit there.
I'm not now, nor was I ever, a highly recruited player or wide receiver. But if you're making like, I got friends whose kids are in college or headed off to college right now. If we're talking about a recruiting picture, as a parent, I'm saying, all right, here's what I want you to be focused on when you're choosing this school. What position do you play? What does that school do with that position? Do they set you up for long-term success? If I think you're a Sunday player, and all parents probably do, certainly Jerome Miles' parents do, guys that are in that 4-star, 5-star range, their parents probably think that they're headed to the NFL at some point. You're saying, can they turn you into an NFL player? How much money are they going to give you right now? And probably third, when we're talking about wide receivers, is who's the guy throwing to you going to be?
Yeah, who's the quarterback? How talented is that kid?
What kind of reputation does this school have at the quarterback position? And again, USC's got you beat there. So I don't want there to be these alarm bells ringing because you missed out on a local kid in Jerome Miles. The only reason you had any chance at Jerome Miles is because he was a local kid.
And because Isaac Wilson was his quarterback, too, I'm sure. Had a lot to do
If you want to lament losing out on players, the number one guy in the state, you can lament losing out on Kingsley back in the day. You can lament losing out on Penei Sewell back in the day. You can lament missing out on Noah Sewell back in the day. You don't have to lament losing a wide receiver.
They got Nephi, though.
They eventually
did get Nephi.
Eventually, they got Nephi,
who was, by the way, outstanding high school player. He went to school down St. George Desert Hills High School, so it covered him a little bit. You're telling me that there was a Sewell football player who was good? Shocking, James. I know, right?
Breaking news.
Penei was the guy everyone saw as the best NFL prospect, and they were teammates at that time. Noah was a little bit younger, but Nephi was like great returner, great running back, great safety. Like he was anyway. He was incredible to watch in high school.
And
breaking news.
You probably you probably should have just if you had any sense of what the Sewell lineage was, you probably should have just offered the first one.
Seriously.
And
he and Penei, I don't know which one's older, but they were about around the same age. Nephi might have been the oldest.
Here's a genius idea, all right? Anytime there's a family with like 3 or 4 boys and the oldest one is a good football player, offer the oldest one. Even if you don't really love them.
Basketball, too. I mean, think about the Holidays at UCLA that all of them have had pretty long NBA careers, Drew Holiday being the most the the most notable of all of them. But it's like just offer, if they're great athletes and you want to be good at that sport, offer the oldest one.
You're probably, especially in season, you're not going to hear me talking about recruiting hardly ever. But this one was unique. This is a local kid who faked everyone out by reaching for the Utah hat, and
certainly made a lot of waves.
There was a strong reaction to it, and my reaction to it, I guess, is strong in a different way. I wish Jerome Miles was coming to Utah, but I'm also like, the logical thing here is for him to go to USC and test those waters. And maybe he ends up back at Utah after a transfer portal situation. But as a wide receiver, objectively, USC right now is a better option for you because of the money, because of the long-term prospects. Can Utah close that gap? Yes. Can Utah find exceptions to that rule? Yes. Will Utah develop a wide receiver that we don't have those kind of high hopes for, high regards for coming out of high school? Yes. That'll all happen. We don't need to worry so much about Jerome Miles or anyone else with those stars next to his name. Utah just has to figure out how to develop wide receivers the same way that they develop linebackers, safeties, defensive linemen, defensive backs, corners. Like, it's a gap you got to close. Anyway, lots to talk about with Utah football on the show today. Rising report. Eric Weddle's going to swing by, and, of course, Nate Orchard as well. But today is the opening of Utah Hockey Club's training camp. We got sound from yesterday's Utah Hockey Club Media Day. We'll have some reports. Already an injury report out for the Utah Hockey Club. This is the ugly side of the NHL. They're only going to practice 3 times before they play, but when they practice, it's going to be tough, and there's going to be a couple guys banged up, so that's unfortunate. We'll get to some of that. Opening segment on the Sean O'Connell Show, always brought to you by Alvia Armani and alviaarmani.com. If you're experiencing hair loss, if your hairline is retreating more than you're comfortable with, if it's thinning, you don't have to suffer through that anymore. Let Alvia Armani help you out, alviaarmani.com. Little check-in with the Utah Hockey Club, and you'll hear from Clayton Keller next on the Sean O'Connell Show. Sean O'Connell Show here on a Thursday, marching you towards a big game weekend for Utah. They take on Oklahoma State on the road. You can hear that game right here on ESPN 700. And also a little Utah Hockey Club preseason action happening this weekend. On Sunday, it's the Blues versus your Utah Hockey Club. Should we start calling them the Yeti just yet? The Yeti yet? See, another reason I don't love the name.
Not Yeti.
They're not Yeti, the Utah Yeti?
Not Yeti.
OC.
Maybe they'll give St. Louis the Blues on Sunday, though.
Okay, I made a mistake by allowing you to open your mic.
Hey, I got the control back here, my friend.
That's I don't know why I'm pretending I allow anything, but all right. In any case, training camp begins today, and yesterday was the Utah Hockey Club Media Day. It was during my show. Wasn't able to attend in person. Our guy Porter Larson, who produces The Drive with Spence Checketts, went over there, gathered a bunch of sound for us. We have that sound available at ESPN700sports.com. You can find it on the ESPN 700 app. Bill Armstrong, Bear Tordney, some of the stars, Sean Dursey. And I want to give you Clayton Keller. Clayton Keller's a name and a face that you're going to be seeing a lot of. He is one of the brightest young players on this Utah Hockey Club team. I think you're going to see a lot of Clayton Keller sweaters when you attend those games at the Delta Center. Here's the left wing talking about the start of a new era, Utah hockey in the NHL.
We're pleased to welcome four-time All-Star forward Clayton Keller to the table. As a kind reminder, please state your name and affiliation when asking a question.
Hey, Clayton, Alex, Tim up here from the Hockey News. First of all, it's finally good to meet you in person. Welcome to Utah. I guess just talking about, the coming season, I know there's a lot of talk in the organization about, wanting to take the next step. For you personally as a player, what does that helping the organization take the next step look like for you this season?
Yeah, I think, we have a lot of young players, a lot of guys that took a lot of strides last season, and I think our core group of guys have done a great job in helping them take that next step. And I think, as you grow as a as a team, every day you get better. We're a close group. We, hang out a lot, and just super excited to, go out on the ice and perform.
Cole Bagley with KSL Sports. Clayton, you were in Vegas last week at that media event. You got to put on the new threads. Just curious, your thoughts on them, and then what was the reaction from some of the other teams and players that were there when they saw them?
Yeah, it was super cool and super exciting. I think all the comments that I got were good comments, and everyone liked the colors and just how clean and good the jerseys look. So super excited to put it on for the first time in a game.
Brogan Houston here from Deseret News. So I have two questions for you. One is more serious, one's more goofy, if you'll bear with me for both. So okay. The first one, I'll start with the goofy one. I've heard that you are the king of ping pong on the Coyotes/Utah Hockey Club. I've heard the same thing about Mikhail Sergachev on the Lightning. Who would win in a battle between the two of you?
I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out. I will say though, Nick Schmaltz is really good too. Okay. So yeah, we'll have some good matches for sure.
Okay, and then my second question, more serious. So you were there for kind of the development of the minor hockey programs in St. Louis, and kind of from the point where it was a little less successful to the point where all of a sudden you're spitting out all these NHL players such as yourself and the Kachucks and whoever else. Now that they're trying to develop Utah hockey just as a sport in general, never mind the NHL, what do you think the key steps are to doing that, to get to the point where they can spit out NHL players such as yourself?
Yeah, I think, it helps a lot, obviously, that, there's an NHL team here now. And, when I was growing up, I always looked up to all the Blues players, went to as many games as I could, different community event things to meet the players, be around them. And I think, helping out youth programs is also a big thing. I think, me in my situation, I was lucky enough to be, coached by former NHL players, guys that, played long careers, and they really taught us the right way to play and how to grow and be a better person, things like that. And I think that's ultimately why we had so much success in draft picks out of St. Louis, is because of all the extra work that they put in. So I think that's, one thing that I would say.
Alex Silverman from Sports Business Journal, back here. You were obviously in Arizona for a long time, so involved in the community there, spoke at city council meetings to try and keep the team there. What has it been like just kind of coming to terms with the change that's going on with this franchise, and what has the transition been like?
Yeah, I think, it's exciting. There was a lot of long days and discussions about the team there. And, when this kind of happened, we were super excited to, move to, Utah, new franchise, new ownership, an ownership that wants to win and have done everything, that we've asked, and kind of, asked for, what we needed to be successful, and came through on everything. So I think that's, a big thing. And, we're super excited to be here and grow this franchise and, be a hockey team that's fun to watch and wins a lot of hockey games.
Ryan Miller, KSL.com. What role has Bear played in your guys' development during this rebuild?
Yeah, I think, since day one, he made it clear on what culture that he wanted, and, a winning type of culture. And I think the other thing is just the type of person he is. He really does care. He's hard on you, but he cares. And, if you make a bad play or something bad happens in the game, that next day he's already forgot about it. He treats you like a person, and he's honest with everyone. I think, those are all things that, you want in a coach. And, when the coach believes in you, you're going to play harder for him. And I really do believe everyone thinks that. And like I said, he's always super honest, and that's a huge thing as well.
Hey, Clayton, Matt Como with NHL.com. Just your excitement level for camp finally getting underway with everything that's been going on this summer. How excited are you to just get the skates back on and get back in it with the guys? And then just what your thoughts, if you could explain what you think this team can accomplish this season.
Yeah, super excited. I was bored the last couple of weeks or so. You're always itching to get back to training camp, get around the guys. That's when you have the most fun. So just super, super excited and looking forward to it. And for our team, I expect big things. I think every year is kind of a new challenge. Last year we made a little bit of a push and had a lull there. And, I think we learned a lot of things about our team, our leadership, things like that. So, we definitely want to take that next step and, be in the playoffs. I think, where our team sits right now, we have a good mix of, veteran guys that are, 25, 26, my age, and some guys that are younger. So I think it's a good mix of guys to, really make that push, and we're super excited for it.
Scoring goals wasn't an issue for you guys last year, but the club made an investment on the back end, defensively. How are these new additions going to help this club win more games?
Yeah, they're going to help us a ton. I think, the back end might be the most important thing. It makes everything easier. It keeps the puck out of the net. They get the pucks up to the forwards. We have a lot of speed up front, so that'll definitely help guys, Sergachev, Ian Cole, guys that, have experience, have won Stanley Cups, played in big games, know what it takes to win. So it's awesome to, add those guys to our group.
Clayton Keller, number 9 on the ice, number 1 in your hearts, potentially. Gonna be a big star for this Utah Hockey Club, who is in camp today. First preseason game against the Blues on Sunday. We talked about that yesterday. Just get right to the business, man. Just get right after it.
Love that.
Yeah, love that.
I feel like I'm rubbing it off on you with that line you just made. Number 9 on the ice, number 1 in your hearts. Maybe reluctantly.
Yeah.
Rubbing off.
You know what? I don't want to admit that. 2 years ago, scored 37 goals, 49 assists. Last year, 33 goals, 43 assists. that guy's going to be giving you some points on the ice. Clayton Keller. We'll have that sound again available. You can hear from the GM. You can hear from the coach. You can hear from other players on this Utah Hockey Club team on the ESPN 700 app. And, of course, at ESPN700sports.com as well. As always, the Sean O'Connell Show brought to you by Les Schwab Tires. They've got the tires, the wheels, the accessories for whatever it is you drive. Stop by your local Les Schwab today, and the professionals will help you get the job done, and they'll do it right the very first time. Also, you put me onto this, James. Utah Hockey Plus.
Yes.
Just like the Jazz Plus, they're gonna have a subscription service.
Utah HC Plus.
That allows you to be dialed in on every single broadcast, every single game, all the accessory content. They hired Tyson Nash, who is a former NHL player, to be kind of the alt cast. He's their Manning cast version. He's the Utah.
Yeah, and the Jazz had a few alt casts last year during their decade nights with Thurl Bailey hosting a lot of those with the former players. So I was wondering if they were going to bring in some of the alt casts for the hockey team. That pretty cool. And if you're a fan that's not in the Salt Lake or Utah market, you'll be able to watch the games on Utah HC Plus because you won't be able. It's going to be on over-the-air television, just like the Jazz were with K-Jazz here locally. So it definitely lets fans outside of the market be able to watch more games. So good idea.
Can I give you a flex right now?
Let's go.
Can I flex on you a little bit? I got this email.
I'm not intimidated.
I got this email from the Utah Hockey Club. As a valued Utah Hockey Club season ticket member, you receive a complimentary subscription to Utah HC
Plus.
Yeah, baby!
That's what you did it for.
Free stuff. Yes. I love it. So while you're, crying about not being able to stream everything, I'm going to be like, sorry, James, if only you had my password to Utah HC Plus. But it's unethical for me to share it with you because this team deserves your support financially.
Yeah, you should shell out I didn't scan down far enough. How much are they charging per month? Did they say in that email?
I think it's $125 for the whole season.
For the whole season, they're doing a season charge. Okay, I'm sure there's probably a monthly breakdown for those that don't want to pay. Anyway, yeah, $70 a year is what it looks like here. Less than $1 per game. So there you go. And monthly,
at that price, you can't afford not to buy it.
Yeah, and monthly at $15. Other Utah HC Plus subscription options include monthly at $15 a month, pay-per-view at $5 a game.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go.
Coming up next, the hot lunch. Don't you ever tell Deion Sanders about the weather forecast, no matter what. We'll discuss this on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700. You ever tried to start a conversation with James with a question or just a little prompt, and immediately things deteriorate because you can't agree on the first premise? Ever happened when you're like talking to your wife about
That's the worst.
like, hey, where do you want to go to dinner? Oh, why are we going out for dinner? Oh, jeez.
You're like, whoa.
You can't even get to the actual answer, the actual decision, because immediately just like, who decided we're going out for dinner?
Yeah. Oh, my bad. My bad for suggesting to take you out tonight. My bad. Or what's about to happen with Dion in this report.
Nothing worse than when you start a conversation and immediately just roadblock.
Derailed.
That happened at media availability at the University of Colorado. Deion Sanders, the gift that keeps on giving with these media interactions. Don't ever tell that man what the weather's going to be like. Go ahead, James.
Hey, Coach, with potential rain in the forecast for Saturday.
We got rain? What forecast you got?
Just changed this morning.
No, let me see. It ain't say rain on mine. Who do you use? Straight up.
I just saw it from a local meteorologist this morning.
There you go.
A meteorologist?
That's a mistake. I got 5169. This joker's been accurate. Anybody else read yours?
Either way, let's just say there is rain on the.
No, we're not going to say there is rain. I'm one of those good weather man. When you say 60%, I say 40%. 40% chance that it ain't.
Meteorologist that I respect highly said that there's a pretty good chance it rains on Saturday.
30%. Okay. I don't know which one I got. I need to check mine.
That's so good. Oh, just trying to save it. All right. Let's say that there is rain. Nope, not going to say that. Just doubling, tripling down. Deion Sanders he's magical, man. Like,
and he's one of those good weather men too.
I got one of those good weather men. If it's a 60% chance of rain, he's more of a glass half full type of guy. No, it's 40% chance that it's not gonna rain.
Boom. Positivity.
My favorite part about that is he said, "Where'd you get that from?" A meteorologist. Well, that's your problem.
Yeah, you got to use your phone now.
And the guy goes, "A meteorologist?"
And then
I should listen to the meteorologist?
And then he has to qualify it later with a guy I really trust. Okay?
I'll tell you what.
I really trust this guy, I promise.
James, I'm not sure whose side I'm on here, if we're being honest. Because weatherwomen, like, it's a pseudoscience. It's predictive. But how many times have they been wrong? In Utah, it's always the snowpocalypse is coming. It's always just like batten down the hatches, fire up the generator, make sure you have all of the medicine and water that you need because this squall that's coming is going to ruin your life.
Because if you don't have it, we're going to have to send Balto out to get it to you.
And then there's like this light dusting of snow, and it's
no snow at all sometimes.
It's 4 degrees colder than you thought it was the day before, and you're like, oh, okay, we're alive.
We're good. Good thing I had that generator, though.
So
I had it ready.
So I'm genuinely conflicted. I don't know if Deion Sanders is in the right here or if this reporter who trusts the meteorologist, who's wrong?
Yeah. Well, I was telling you this off air when you were telling me we wanted to air this on the show. I was telling you, I think covering Deion Sanders' Colorado team program would be a nightmare. I feel like I would have conflicted thoughts of like, maybe I should just show him that if you talk to us, if you act like a clown in the press conference, no one's going to go to the press conference. But then he's just going to be like, fine, we got our own social media team. We already want this.
I don't want to do the press conferences anyway.
I'd have so much conflict in the inner conflict.
I tell you what, it's a tough job for actual journalists.
Yes.
For people like us, for columnists, people who it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Or social media people who just want to put great videos on social media. It's outstanding.
Glorious.
Yeah.
Like Deion Sanders is an industry unto himself when it comes to that kind of thing. And whether you love him or hate him, it doesn't matter because all you have to do is put the content out and then people are either going to love it or they're going to hate it.
Yeah. But even as like a more traditional journalist like that, when you know, hey, I'm going to get a lot of clicks on my story if I put this quote in, or because he's going to give me great quotes, or just put the Deion Sanders. We spoke to Deion Sanders today. I would still be like, I would still have the fighting off these. I don't care. This guy acts too much like a clown for me to want to give him this attention.
I think I would love it. I think I would love, because I think that reporter did a great job of pushing back and be like, seriously, a meteorologist?
The sigh.
He laughed about it. I think Dion is maybe one of those guys. He's very clearly alpha of all alphas, right?
Yes.
Or fancies himself as such. I think he's one of those guys that if you, and again, it's very difficult. It's impossible for journalists to do this, for big J, real journalists, newspaper writers, etc. I think if you're like the local class clown on the radio like I am, you could go to that press conference and he could be like, oh, well, that's your problem. You listen to the meteorologist and just be like, okay, well, now the conversation is something different. It's like, where do you get your weather?
Yeah.
You just feel it in your bone? Then you could have a fascinating conversation with Deion
lick
Sanders.
Stick it in the air.
Which way the bird fine.
Yeah.
It's
no, you're
not,
right.
For someone who's trying to do
actually get
respect
a good
craft,
story. Yeah.
That would be frustrating.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Bill Belichick in New England. I used to listen to his press conferences and infuriated because he just gives nothing to these people whose jobs depend on him trying to give him something.
And we're not worried about we're not worried about anything except Kansas City.
One word answers and that, and it's, hey, Bill, this is not actually going to change whether or not you have to do the press conferences. So since it's something you have to do, it's part of your job, it's in your contract, you have to do it. How about you just do it?
And no one's asking you to give away state secrets here. Just tell us something. We'll run with it.
For these coaches who act like that with the media, it's the equivalent of a player showing up to practice and dogging it.
Yeah.
And just it's the same thing. It's part of your job. It's the less pleasant part of your job. It's the part of your job you probably don't like.
Just give us coach speak. Give us something. We don't care.
But it's part of your job.
Yeah.
And you would not, under any circumstances, accept it from a player to show up at practice and just half-ass it. It's not allowed. You can't do it. You get punished for it. But these coaches can just make media lives miserable. And because media is fans even, they love to hate the media, even though their entire relationship with a team is dependent on and shaped by the media.
It's different now because teams have their own social media and stuff. You can get more access without traditional media, but fans would not have near as much a connection ever till the end of time if traditional media just went away.
Yeah, and so it's kind of messed up.
Yeah.
But so Coach Prime, I mean that one's funny to me. That's Coach.
Yeah. No.
When Prime comes in and he's like, "Hey, you're attacking my players because you're jealous of them," which he also did.
That's kind of bad, Coach Prime media.
It's also kind of true.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of bad because it's just like, yep, we do it. He said, you never used to attack college players. That's right, because now they're pros.
Yeah.
Because they make more money than you all do. Yes, that's right. I feel more comfortable criticizing someone who is driving a Bentley to work than criticizing an 18-year-old kid who a burrito from the school cafeteria for free
and wearing bling that's like a few $1 million around their necks. Yeah, like his son, by the way.
It's part of the thing, right?
Yeah.
And actually, Shador and Shiloh Sanders went on the Robert Griffin III podcast. It's worth your time. After you're done listening to the Sean O'Connell Show and listening to The Drive with Spence Checketts, it's worth your time to go check out. I think RG3 is great. I think he's just a bright, shining star in the media industry. I'm surprised he doesn't have an official gig right now. He will land on his feet eventually, I'm very sure. But Shiloh and Shador Sanders interact differently with a guy that they respect than they do with the rest of us. So it's worth watching that.
By the way, did you enjoy having Dion in the studio with you? We had the actual clip on the stream.
Yes, that is.
He was next to your left elbow there.
That's a technological marvel that we now are capable of here on our YouTube channel. So you can see the embedded video when it's available to us. Woo! Yeah, baby. All right. That's the hot lunch. Deion Sanders providing like he always does. Jersey Mike's brings you the hot lunch every day on the Sean O'Connell Show. Every sandwich sliced fresh right in front of you. Cheesesteaks made to order on the grill. So stop in for lunch today at Jersey Mike's, a sub above. Rising Report is next. Cam Rising, QB1? Question mark? Maybe we'll get some insight from the man himself. So Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. course, is a conversation with QB1 Cameron Rising of your Utes. Cam Rising, what's up? How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. I got to ask, so how's the hand feeling?
It's feeling a lot better. Definitely way better than last week, and just continues to get better. So just got to keep staying on top of treatment and everything, and we're turning in the right direction.
That's always good to hear. I want to focus a lot of this conversation on Oklahoma State, but I do want to look back a little bit at this Utah State game. And, you guys did it without you. Not without you. You were there. You were on the sideline, warmed up, getting yourself ready to play. A slow start for Utah. You've seen it happen when you're under center. You've seen it happen when you're watching on the sideline. You've probably seen it happen when you're watching on TV. Is there a way to look back on it and say why a slow start happens? Can you figure it out after the fact?
Just sometimes in football, you don't connect early and can't really get into a rhythm, and when that happens, it just gets hard for the offense. It gets a little stagnant, and then usually Coach Luck calls some easy plays for the quarterback that gives them some easy reads and kind of get into a rhythm, and I think once that happens, usually that offense starts to get rolling, and it did that just this last Saturday, and we just got to make sure we're coming out a lot faster this game because this is a high-powered team right here.
I've been trying to get to the bottom of this. Isaac looked so much better after the half, and I asked Coach Witt about it. Hey, what'd you say to him? What'd you do? He said, I didn't do anything. He was over with Coach Ludd, and I asked Coach Ludd, and he didn't think it was something that happened at halftime. Did you have a conversation with Isaac Wilson at halftime? Were you able to tell that the second half was going to be a better half?
I kind of got that sense at the end of the second half in the second quarter. I think he really started to get a rhythm and just get a feel for the game and really just got comfortable back there and he turned it on. I think at halftime the only thing I told him was let's go win this game with the explicit right there, but no, and he was fired up and it was a good day, and he came out on fire. I think he was 8 for 8 out of the half, and anytime you get to do that, and the offense is going to be firing on all cylinders.
Coach Ludd said he actually thought it was the touchdown pass in the late second quarter to Money Parks. Coach Ludd called it an aha moment. He said, I think that's where the game kind of clicked for Isaac Wilson, and that makes sense to me, right? You get those moments where you realize, oh my gosh, I know exactly what I'm doing. I belong here, etc. When did that happen for you? Do you remember in your career, earlier in your career, when you were just like, aha, I know exactly how to play this position. I'm going to be fine moving forward?
I think it was just the San Diego State game that I played in 21. That, just kind of playing free. You don't really have any worries and just go out there and play some ball. That's kind of where I started to feel that comfort playing quarterback.
It's actually really funny to hear you say that, because if you ask Utah fans, like, what was the pivotal moment for this team in the turning point, like they will point to that same thing. Hey, when Cam Rising took over as QB1 and still lost that San Diego State game, you played well, fought back, but after that it was onward and upward and 2 Pac-12 championships and all that other stuff. So it's funny that your recollection of it, the moment for you, is the same for a lot of the fans.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you get your name called, you just got to be ready. And that was definitely a good game, but I still wish we could have won it. And that's one thing I regret about that game.
Cam Rising, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show for the Rising Report, headed on the road to Stillwater. Let's talk about this game with Oklahoma State. They are a team that is a lot like Utah. Sometimes overlooked, maybe not as big of a brand, but just as powerful and can beat anybody in college football. That was true when they were in the Big 12 with Texas and with Oklahoma. That's true now. Your expectations for the atmosphere in Stillwater. The stadium's about the same size as Rice-Eccles. The fan base is very similar, very loyal. It should be loud.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been there before, back when I was at Texas, and it's a rowdy crowd, and they do a good job making noises. They got the paddles smacking the boards and stuff, and it's going to be a great environment. And it's kind of everything you dream of as a kid playing college football, going into a hostile environment like that, and yeah, just ready to get out there and get the ball rolling.
All right, let's talk about what this Oklahoma State team is on paper, and maybe you could tell me more about what they are on film. Because on paper right now, they're the worst passing defense in the Big 12 Conference. They're giving up a lot of yardage, but they're not giving up a ton of points. They're obviously 3-0, so the only stat that really matters, they're successful. They've won them all.
Yeah.
But, this is a young secondary that has shown some vulnerability. That's the paper side. What are you seeing on film?
They love to play a lot of man coverage and stuff, and they do run multiple coverages and stuff, and I know that can be challenging for offenses to see, but it can also be challenging for them to go out there and execute all those different types of defenses that you can see. Not a very typical thing that a lot of defenses do, but they definitely have some great athletes on the defense that can make some plays and stuff like that. And I think, like you said, they don't give up very many points, and I think that's because they play good red zone defense and stuff like that. And yeah, they're a good team, and I think they do a good job just feeding off the offense and relying on that, and both sides can really do stuff. But yeah, they're a good team.
I asked Coach Ludwig this yesterday, and he said, I wasn't holding anything in the playbook back against Baylor. We need to win these games. You got to win all of these games. Is there anything new? Are there new wrinkles that we might see against Oklahoma State that in the non-conference the playbook didn't get that deep, or because it was Isaac instead of Cam and the freshman doesn't have the same bandwidth? Will we see more in the offense this week from a play calling standpoint, you think?
I mean, yeah, you can definitely dress things up differently and give it a different appearance, but at the end of the day, it's football. You got to go out there and execute plays and stuff, and we got to make sure we're running stuff that we're comfortable with, and I think the team is just ready. I think a lot of the plays we've been working on for a long time, ever since really spring ball. So just got to be ready to go for whatever Coach Led calls. I mean, there's always going to be new wrinkles in each and every week, and I think Coach Led does a good job just making sure we're hitting on all cylinders and really just know what we want to get accomplished with each play.
I know that every game is taken very seriously, and you do take it 1 week at a time, and everyone's trying to improve every single week. Is there a sense in practice this week, though, like, hey, now we really got to step up? I need 10% more from everybody. I need whatever that number is, more from everybody, because not only is this conference play, but this is another team that is your equal. This is another highly ranked team that is built just like you are in a lot of ways. Is there that sense where, like, you already took all these other games seriously, but this one is even more important and you got to be that much better?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you get to conference play, it comes down to championships at that point. So every game we play is pretty much has to be treated as if it's a championship, and you just got to go out there and be ready to execute. And I think we've had a great week of practice so far, and just got to finish these next 2 days off and get on the plane and get ready to go.
Okay, I know they're piping noise in the practices, right? They do that thing where they turn up the speakers. How annoying is that for you? I mean, I was only a practice player. I didn't have to deal with crowd noise in the games, but I hated those weeks of practice where Urban Meyer would roll out the big speaker system and just crank that stuff up. You couldn't hear yourself think. It's the worst.
It is. It's not the worst. I actually have grown quite fond of it. It definitely makes that environment just kind of seem more peaceful. You kind of feel a little bit more comfortable once you get into that loud third down and stuff like that, or even in the red zone. And I just feel like, yeah, you have to kind of do that just so that you're going in to those hostile environments, and you got to make sure everybody can hear and gets the play call, because sometimes those play calls get pretty long, and just it's good to get work at it during the week so that we can go into the game time and be ready to go.
Is the headset in your helmet just like headphones? You can turn the volume up and down, like you've had to adjust that, or you're willing to adjust that when you're practicing it and when you're in the game?
Yeah, for sure. And we also have these little covers that kind of go in our helmet that pretty much simulate covering your earpiece right there, so or that ear hole that's in the helmet, and yeah, that kind of makes it a lot easier hearing just with that speaker being right next to your ear and having a cover. It really keeps the sound in, so should be pretty good hearing the calls and everything.
There's actually a built-in cover in your helmet, because the only time a quarterback doesn't look cool on a football field is when he's standing there looking at the sideline and cupping his hands over the ear holes in the helmet. That's the only time a quarterback doesn't look cool. So they've eliminated that possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think they do it in the NFL and away games and stuff. Yeah, it's just a little piece that covers that ear hole, and it's hard to talk to people from the side. But besides that, you need to get the call really, and that's the one thing you need to focus on.
That's awesome. Cam Rising and my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, getting ready for a road trip. Utes at Oklahoma State. Utes are ranked 12th in the country. Oklahoma State ranked 14th in the country. Going back to that secondary, and it's a young secondary, and they do have a bunch of different looks. Is this a week where you could see the wide receiver room specifically being a bigger part of the offense, going off for some more touchdowns? Because we've seen the passing game pick up, but it's been tight ends, it's been running backs out of the backfield. Is this the week for the wide receiver room potentially?
Absolutely. I mean, anytime you get a team that plays a lot of man coverage, you got to have guys win on the outside, and that's really what will keep the offense moving down the field. So, yeah, I do expect them to have a good week. They've been looking good running their routes all week, and yeah, I'm just excited to get them the ball.
I know you're focused on the offensive performance here, but your defense has got a tough task as well. Best running back in the country last year was Ollie Gordon, and he's still on that roster, and they brought back a bunch of starters on the offensive line. For whatever reason, they have yet to really get it going in the run game at Oklahoma State. And again, I know you're focused on their defense and your offense, but when you're in those team periods and we've kind of like talked to the coaching staff and figured out the whole game plan, have you all been able to figure out why that is happening, why that run game hasn't got going yet for Oklahoma?
Not really. I mean, I don't really get to study their offense very much. I don't like to vary from what I have to accomplish. But, yeah, I think they definitely have struggled running it and stuff like that. But I think they just haven't really opened it up and tried to give Ollie some new looks and just let him kind of handle it, because I do have a lot of respect for him. I think he's a very, very good running back. And yeah, I think it's going to be a hard task for the defense, but I think they'll be up for it.
Oklahoma State is without a guy you could argue is their best pass rusher. I could make an argument that Colin Oliver is probably their best overall defender because of his versatility, and they're without him. How do you attack a defense knowing they're without their best player potentially?
It's never something you want. You always want to go against the best, and yeah, I think he's a phenomenal player. I wish he was going to be able to be on the field, but yeah, you just gotta go attack it in every way you can. Take advantage of the pass, because he was a phenomenal pass rusher and stuff. But they definitely have some guys behind him that can disrupt some plays and stuff like that. So just got to be ready to play and play at a high level. It doesn't matter who's on the field. Just got to go out there and execute.
The poll question on Twitter today for the Sean O'Connell Show is: do you expect this game to be a slugfest, low scoring, kind of grinded out type game, or could it potentially turn into the high flying, high scoring shootout? Because the brands are Utah, physical team, grinds it out. The brand for Oklahoma State, physical team, grinds it out. But both squads now very capable opening things up in the pass game. Actually, Oklahoma State's been a lot more successful this year with their pass game than they have their run game. So I put the poll question to the starting quarterback. What is more likely in Stillwater, a slugfest or a shootout?
I think it'll be somewhat of a combination of the both. I think there'll definitely be some points put up on the board. And, yeah, I think it's kind of going to be who can score the most. It's kind of always been that way in the Big 12, and it's not going to be – it's definitely not going to be an easy game. I think everything's going to be fought for, but, yeah, I do expect there to be some points put up on the board.
How much swagger does Mekhi Bernard have walking around right now? He's got a couple of 100-yard games under his belt. It's clear that he's proven himself. He can be running back number one. He can be a bell cow. And it feels like a role he's been working toward for a very long time. It's been fun for us to kind of watch him accomplish that and truly deserve it here. What's he like in practice right now?
He's doing a great job, just making sure he's leading, always locked in, and always trying to help out in any way he can. He's a phenomenal player, and anytime you can get him the ball, it's usually going to be very successful for the offense. So yeah, just gotta make sure he stays running downhill and pops a few big ones, and that always helps the whole offense. But yeah, he's got a lot of confidence right now. We just got to keep it rolling and let him be the player he is.
And I'm not going to name any names right now. This is a general question. When a player is in the coach's doghouse or feels like he's in the coach's doghouse, what can you do as a teammate, as a captain, as a leader to help them work their way out of a position where they feel some type of way about the reps they're getting or the respect they're getting or whatever it is?
I mean, just stay locked in. You can. That's usually always my advice. You never know when you're going to be needed, and just got to make sure you're ready for when your name is called, so that you can go in there and kind of not let them look back at all, and just focus on the task at hand. That's pretty much the only thing that there is to do, because you can't really control anything else. And yeah, I think that whoever gets their name called at any time will be ready to go on the Utes.
Cam Rising for another minute or two here on the Sean O'Connell Show as the Utes get ready for a road trip to Stillwater to take on Oklahoma State. Injuries are never funny, and the fallout from injuries are never funny, but something from your injury did turn out to be at least a little bit funny this week. I don't think you're on social media during the season, right? You kind of stay away from the Twitter and stuff?
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay, so were you aware, though, of the troll tweet, the troll account that put out that, like, you had developed, I don't know, gangrene or something, you were going to be out for an extended amount of time because of the hand injury, and some people got. Some people fell for the tweet, including Deion Sanders. Did you see this?
I did. And thank you, Deion. That was very nice of you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I think they said I got tetanus or something. So
yes,
yeah, it was definitely very nice of them. I got a lot of respect for Coach Deion and how he's doing his things. But yeah, it's not an ideal situation when somebody starts tweeting out stuff like that. It definitely did get some people, and even some of my teammates were asking me if I was okay. So yeah, it was definitely a funny ordeal.
Oh, it's crazy how that happens. And actually, not only did Deion express his respect for you and his concern for you, even when he found out that the tweet was fake, he doubled down and was just like, okay, well, what I said was still true. Cam Rising's a beast, and I still wish him well. So that's really cool. And that's really where I wanted to go with this question, because, look, Deion Sanders is one of the most famous guys in sports and even beyond sports, right? And Deion has told us he's a Cam Rising fan. Like, I know you don't get starstruck. I know you're a star yourself at this point, but who is the most famous Cam Rising fan, or who is the person who, when you realize, oh, they're aware of me and they talk about me, they think about they know that I'm the starting QB at Utah, you're like, wow, that's actually pretty cool that person is a fan of Cam Rising. Who is there a big name? Is there a famous person who you're just like, wow, that's pretty awesome?
I mean, well, growing up for me, I was more so a DB and a corner, so I actually loved Deion. He would always be talking and just putting on a show out there playing and everything like that. And I was a Cowboys fan, so I always knew about Deion wearing that 21 in the Cowboys uniform. And yeah, I've always had a lot of respect for him and just admire him as an athlete and as a player and even as a coach. And yeah, it's pretty cool to have one of the GOATs talking about you and even just having any respectful comments and anything like that. It's a good deal. And yeah, I think Deion is definitely something sticks out to me in that sense.
That would make sense. He is one of the. I mean, he is arguably the best defensive back all time in football, and obviously a huge star for multiple reasons now. So pretty cool when a guy like that, especially if you grew up watching him, is just like, yeah, I'm a fan of Cam Rising. Wild moment.
Yeah, it's definitely surreal, and yeah, I think he is the GOAT at cornerback without a doubt.
All right, so good luck in Stillwater. Obviously, we're wishing for your health. I'm going to say it before we get out because you know I got to. You do expect to play this game?
That is my plan at the moment, yes, sir.
That's what we're all hoping for, Cam. As always, I appreciate your time. We'll talk again next week. Good luck.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you. Have a good one.
That is Cam Rising, starting quarterback for your Utah Utes. And that was actually the thing I was most excited to ask him about. What's it like when, like, a megastar effectively is aware of you and knows you? Deion Sanders is a big star. And Deion Sanders, because he's a coach now, but even if he wasn't a coach right now, he probably would know about Cam Rising. And that's got to be pretty cool. I had one of those moments, James, not with somebody like Deion Sanders, not with somebody on that level. Have you ever watched American Pickers, the like antiquing show? Have you ever watched American Pickers?
Like maybe an episode. I know what you're talking about, though.
Okay, you know what American Pickers is?
I'm laughing that you're a fan of American Pickers.
I love
awesome.
I love Antiques
awesome.
Roadshow. I love American Pickers. All right, and I actually had an opportunity. I ran into Frank from American Pickers. All right, I would at a fight event in Iowa. I ran into Frank from American Pickers, and I was just like, "Hey, Frank." This was maybe 2 years after I was done fighting. Frank, huge fan of your show. Love you, man. I think you're awesome. And he goes, "Oh, dude, loved watching you fight. You're awesome."
That's amazing.
I was like, "What?
Did we just become best friends?"
Frank from American Pickers knows who I am. I was so excited about it. So I geeked out about that. If I was still a football player, football was still my thing, and Deion Sanders was like, "I'm a big fan of you," it would blow my mind.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
What's cooler? I'll put this on the poll. What's cooler, Deion Sanders being a fan of you, or Frank from American Pickers being a fan of you?
I think I know how that poll's going to turn out, but let's put it up anyway. Let's do it.
I'm going to put it on the poll. Who would you rather have be a fan of yours? Frank from American Pickers. Yeah. Okay.
I love the idea. I'm anxious to see how lopsided that poll is.
I almost don't want to put it out because it's very obviously going to be brutally one-sided, but that's okay. Big 12 at noon brought to you by Mountain Land Supply. Go to mountainlandsupply.com. Check out their new location as well. Big thanks to Cam Rising for joining us. The Rising Report always brought to you by Prices Guaranteed Doors. Lots more to get to on the show. We got Eric Weddle coming. It's a big day on the Sean O'Connell Show, and you heard it from there. QB1 says the plan right now, I am going to play. I know we've all heard that before, but that's where it's at right now on a Thursday of game week. Sean O'Connell Show marches on ESPN 700. ESPN 700. We are now joined by a Utah football legend. In my opinion, future NFL Hall of Famer. Most importantly, head coach of the Rancho Bernardo Broncos, Eric Weddle. Dub, what's up?
What is up, my brother?
All right. It's been good luck for me to start these interviews talking about your team. The Broncos, another win last Friday, right?
We did. We got another win. We're 4-0. The boys just, this team we played last week ended our season last year in the playoffs, really got after us and embarrassed us on our home field in the semis. So we had a nice intent, a focus, a drive that was needed to go out and play the game that we needed to play. And so got the win, got some momentum, got to continue the momentum. We faced Torrey Pines this week that we haven't beat since 2009. It's been a long, hard rivalry of us on the wrong side of it. So this week has all been about ETS and the streak and build and enjoy the bye week.
I love it. Compare for me the satisfaction of getting a big win over a team that, like a revenge win over a team that beat you last year, versus as a coach versus as a player.
Oh man, you definitely don't enjoy it as much as you do as a player because you're thinking about 700 other things. You got coaches from the other side getting mad at you because for whatever reason through the line, and then you got to talk to an admin after the game about maybe something that happened, and then you're thinking about how the game unfolded and how you should have put up 40 points and you didn't, and the turnovers and the miscues. So you definitely don't enjoy it. You're always thinking about how you can be better. Whereas a player, you don't care how you got the win. As long as you got the win, you're on to the next.
All right, let's talk about these Utes. 3-0. It was not pretty up in Logan, but the job got done. Second half, the offense really came to life, and you saw some nice things from Isaac Wilson. Your thoughts on that Utah State game for the Utes?
Yeah, I mean, it was we talked about it the week before, and it was nice to see that Isaac just getting a rhythm and do what it does. I mean, he made some incredible throws that you're just like, wow. And it goes case in point where one of his strengths are just his throwing ability and his arm talent. And I love seeing him stay in the pocket and go through his reads and make some throws that were some wild throws, and not trying to run them and try to be all crazy with them. Just let him throw and let him gain that experience. So it was fun to watch. I'm not going to lie. It was fun to see the future and see his ability and see what type of offense we can be. I thought initially the defense was kind of finding its way. Barnes was making some incredible throws, which he has always done, and then he'll throw the ball to you. So we ended up getting the ball back on a couple of interceptions, and I was waiting for Morgan to make the adjustment. I'm like, this is the only way this team's going to stay with us or beat us is if we continue to play press man and give up these 50-50 goal balls. And we shored that up. The easiest thing for a quarterback is when you see single high press, you know where the ball's going to go. It doesn't matter what the defense is going to do, the pressure, anything like that. You're going to get the ball out. So it was nice to see that adjustment. And, man, talk about a huge game this weekend. We'll see where we're at.
One more thing on this Isaac Wilson performance. We had Coach Ludd on earlier in the week, and I said, why did he look so much more comfortable in the second half? Did you do something special? And he said, no, credit goes to Isaac. He threw that second quarter pass to Money Parks, and that was kind of an aha moment. That's where it all came together for him. And you have those moments in sports. Do you remember what that moment was for Eric Weddle, a young Eric Weddle?
Shoot, I would say probably Colorado State. It was my first start at corner, my true freshman year, and we were going against, I think his name was Anderson, the receiver, and he was one of the top returning guys coming back, and we ended up losing that game, I believe, if my memory is right. And I ended up just competing, and I gave up my fair share of catches, but I also did pretty well for a first game starter against a really good player. So I felt like that was kind of my moment of like, all right, I belong. Let's learn from it. Let's grow and be better. And, it takes those experiences, good or bad, will always help you in the long run as a football player.
All right, let's talk about this matchup with Oklahoma State. First official Big 12 conference game, highly ranked Oklahoma State team on the road at Boone Pickens Stadium, which is steep and the fans are close and it's loud. What do you need to see from Utah in that tough environment to feel good about this still being a conference championship team?
No doubt. Before we move on, we lost to New Mexico and Texas A&M that year, not Colorado State. So
I didn't want to correct you. I just looked it up, and Utah 28, Colorado State 21. I'll have stats on your guy Anderson in just a second here.
I was sitting here thinking about, oh wait, we lost twice that year. Who did we lose to? And I'm like, we definitely didn't lose to Colorado State. So I apologize to all of my family and friends, the Ute fans, the Ute faithful. I'm sorry. Please don't hurt me.
David Anderson did have a 4-yard touchdown reception in the second quarter. So how dare you allow that? I'm embarrassed for you.
I remember the route. I think it was a return route in the back of the end zone where you run a dig and then you revert back to the back pylons. And, he did get me on that. But, hey, we won the game, and like I said, as a player, that's all that matters. So talking about Oklahoma State, you could say they're still trying to find their way. The ups and downs and who are they identity-wise. Last year, the running back took over and they became a running team and explosive. And now it's kind of like they're not giving him the rock as much. Are they going to try to feed him against us, knowing what type of defense we are? It's electric. It's big time. It's midday. Everyone's going to be watching. I mean, you always talk about playing in big games as a player and a coach, and you want that for your players. You want that for your program. So I'm excited. I don't have anything going on, so I'm going to be able to watch it live for once and just to support the guys. But I expect a tough game, and the way our team is built is meant for games like this on the road. Are we going to have Cam back there? What type of Cam are we going to get in a big game? There's a lot of unknowns. So we got to figure it out early in that game and hopefully make the proper adjustments needed to pull this thing out.
You're probably the wrong guy to ask this question because you are the answer to the question. Like, how do you play without your best defensive player on the field? When you were at Utah, you were the best defensive player on the field. A lot of times in the NFL, you were the best defensive player on your team. So I don't know if you're the right person to answer this question, but I'm going to give it to you anyway because Oklahoma State is without a guy who I think is their best defensive player in Colin Oliver. He was a stellar pass rusher when they were running a 3-man front, and they were asking him to do that, and they said, no, you're going to be more of a tweener. You're going to be a hybrid. You're going to play linebacker, but we'll still walk you up, and we'll still have you rush the passer. And he was an all-conference player at that. He is out right now for Oklahoma State. How difficult for a defense is it to adjust to the absence of a guy like that?
Well, you can't. That there's reasons that you have great players, right? And there's reasons why they're out there. And if you lose one of those guys, especially on maybe on a team that isn't filled with a bunch of elite players like that, it is a huge setback. And you try to manufacture as best as possible, but there will be holes. There will be opportunities lost because that player is not on the field. So how do you take advantage of that from Utah's point of view is going to be key. And for Oklahoma State, how do you manufacture a pass rush without your number one guy? How do you manufacture setting the edge? Is it by combined by multiple guys? Is it by scheme? Are they one to change scheme from week to week? Or do they have that ability from a coaching staff, from a system, from the players' point of view? So it it is tough. You just have to, you have to galvanize the guys and make it more simple in the sense of, hey, the way we win this game is, not giving up the big plays. So we're going to play more soft coverage. They can run the ball. It's fine. Let's just try to outscore them, not give up big plays. So have an understanding, but acknowledge it. But it's going to be tough.
Eric Weddle, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking about Utah versus Oklahoma State. Big road game, first Big 12 conference game for the Utes in Stillwater, coming on Saturday. You can hear it right here on ESPN 700. All right, on paper, this is the worst passing defense through 3 games in the Big 12. They've given up more passing yards than anybody has. How do you attack that if you're Utah?
Well, I think when you see certain deficiencies from your opponent, you always try to, being a coach for a few years now, like, it doesn't change who you are. Like, it doesn't change our identity and how we want to play football and offense. We want to run the football. We want to set up our boot game, set up our waggles, get our shots down the field, get some RPOs, some quick game in there. But that's kind of who we are. So you don't want to just negate who we are and what we've practiced for, months just because this pass defense is not very good, if that makes sense. Like, you don't want to get in a situation where you're trying to be something you're not. Like, just stick with what you're good at and what you practice. And then you trickle in maybe some more opportunities in the pass game that you normally wouldn't, because that is where they're weak at. But then on the flip side, it's like, all right, let's air it out 50 times because they're terrible. So, is my answer right? I don't know, but that's kind of where I would gear to, because being a coach now, when you tend to do things differently that you've done or practiced for months at a time, and you want to try to do something different than who you are, it kind of takes you out of your mindset of what you've tried to instill in the boys.
I think Morgan has maybe a tougher question to answer this week, because you already mentioned Ollie Gordon last year won the Doak Walker Award. He was the best running back in the country last year, and it took him a couple games to really get going in 2023. That has certainly been the case if he ever gets going in 2024. He's only averaging just over 3 yards a carry right now behind a very experienced offensive line. So I don't know why it's not working, but the run game isn't working through 3 games for Oklahoma State. They are decent in the pass game, and Bowman's an experienced quarterback, and they have some weapons on the outside, and that's how they've won their games. So you're Morgan Scalley. Do you say, all right, I gotta make sure I take away these passing opportunities because that's what's buttered their bread this year, and I'm going to let the running back beat me if somebody's going to beat me? I mean, you can't just say that about Ollie Gordon, because we know he's capable of beating you, and you don't want this to be the game that he starts to go off. So what's your defensive approach in a game like this? Because, like you said, the perspective is different now that you are a coach.
Yeah, it'll always be the same as a defensive mindset. We got to stop the run and make them one-dimensional. It'll always be the way. If you allow a team to run the football on you, you have no shot at winning. And I believe that any teams that I've ever come across, and the teams that have been hardest to stop, are the ones that get 4 or 5 yards a clip, and you can't do anything other than load the box up and try to stop the run, and then now you're singled up on the outside. So, yes, it's going to be a challenge. Yes, it does make you a little bit vanilla, but you have to eliminate the run in first and second down so you can earn the right to rush the passer on third down and do all our exotics and do all our fun stuff. So I would say that it's always been the case for the Utah defense, and I suspect a coach to put a great game plan together. You can always blitz the run when it's smart, and movement and twist games and bring some safety pressures to add another guy in the box. But at the end of the day, you have to stop the run or you don't have a shot.
All right, we just had this conversation with Cam Rising, who got a little bit of love from Deion Sanders on Twitter because somebody put out a fake tweet that Cam had tetanus and that he was going to be out for an extended period of time. And Coach Prime got by the fake tweet and was just like, oh, no, that's terrible, but Cam Rising is a great player, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, Cam Rising found out directly that Deion Sanders is a fan of Cam Rising, which I'm sure is a surreal moment for any football player who grew up watching Coach Prime. Who is the coolest fan of Eric Weddle? Who's a person, a celebrity, or whatever, that when you found out or realized, like, oh, wow, that person likes to watch me, it impressed you?
Oh, my gosh. I don't even know if there is one. I mean, I would say I don't even know if he knew who I was or is at the time, but Miles Teller, the actor, he's been really cool. Like, we met at the celebrity golf thing in Tahoe, like, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. And we kind of hit it off, and we like randomly text, a few times a year, and he always hits me back. So I would say that, like, I don't think he had a clue, who, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, it doesn't really matter, but he was just like a real cool, like, that was the first time, like, hanging out with like a legit, like, superstar actor.
Like
and
Top Gun, like Top Gun Maverick Miles Teller, the guy from Whiplash Miles Teller?
Yes, like, legend actor, and he's just as cool as your boys. Like, he was just a normal, like, awesome guy to be around and hang out with. So I would say, I just at the top of my head, I would just say him, even though he probably has no idea who I am.
I'm sure he knows. I'm sure he knows who you are. You're very distinctive in your appearance and your play. That's a good one, man. That's a tough flex to beat if you got Miles Teller in your phone and he's your guy now. That's awesome, Dub. All right, prediction. What do you think is going to happen? Is it going to be a slugfest? Is this going to be a track meet, a high-scoring game? How does it play out?
Shoot, I do think points are going to be scored, and I see about a 10-point victory. 31-21, 31-24, somewhere around there. 34-24. I see a great game, but I see us pulling away because we're just a better team, better coach.
Love it, and always appreciate your perspective. Thank you, my friend. Talk soon.
Always, buddy. Love you, Murph.
That's Eric Weddle. How about that? Rooster from Top Gun 2. That's the Eric Weddle fan that impresses Eric Weddle the most.
Also, Manningcast fame from Monday night. Did you see? No, do you watch the Manningcast though?
I watch like the aftermath of the Manningcast usually. I don't usually watch it.
They had Miles on. He's a big Eagles fan, so they had him on Monday night for the Eagles game, and they photoshopped the Whiplash cover where Miles Teller's on the drums and the mentor is yelling at him.
Yeah.
They photoshopped Eli as the guy on the drums and Peyton yelling at him. It was pretty great.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, that's quite the flex to have Miles Teller be the guy that you were geeking out over, knowing who you are.
Now I want to get Miles Teller on the show. Get us Miles Teller so we can ask him.
Do you know Eric Weddle?
Were you a fan of Eric Weddle, the football player? Because look, anyone who meets Eric Weddle, the person, becomes a fan of Eric Weddle, the person. Because he's just an awesome guy to be around. He's a cool guy. But I want to know if Miles Teller was like, yeah, that was the all-pro safety in the NFL. Super Bowl champion. Because Dub's got like that, especially even if you didn't know who he was prior to that Super Bowl run with the Rams, that got some publicity, and that was like such an epic story. I bet a lot more people became aware after that.
Absolutely. There's no way. And he's a big football fan. He's got to have known who Weddle was before he met him, for sure.
All right, we're going to Nate Orchard is going to join us at the top of hour number 3, but we're behind a break, right?
We'll do a quick segment, reset things, then we'll have Nate Orchard on.
Okay. This is
right
what
after
happens.
that.
This is what happens when you abuse the clock on radio, folks. This is you should always be more professional. Eric Weddle and the interview brought to you by Wasatch Peaks HVAC. They've got over 10 years experience and are committed to delivering excellent customer service, handling a wide range of HVAC services from installation to repair and maintenance. Give Wasatch Peaks a call. Sean O'Connell Show continues next on ESPN 700. All right, Nate Orchard in a few minutes here. I have to do this segment real fast. Just a quick update for all of you traveling to Stillwater, Oklahoma. I double-checked. The forecast, high of 103% chance of rain.
Who'd you get that from?
Coach Prime, please don't do this to me right now.
We don't have time, Prime. I'll corral him. Don't worry about it.
As much as I'm joking about this, that matters actually quite a bit. A hot, humid game in late September when it's been cooling off around here, that sucks for the visiting team. And they're going to be a lot more used to it down there in Stillwater. So it's been hot all week. They've been practicing in it. Utah's going to get smacked in the face by that humidity and heat when they get off the airplane. So unenviable task for the training staff, trying to keep everyone hydrated, make sure everyone's got the electrolytes and all that kind of stuff. Cramping, potentially an issue coming up on Saturday for your Utes.
And most importantly, you got that forecast from a very trusted source.
A local meteorologist in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Show today brought to you by Canyon's Edge Sports Pub. On game days, Canyon's Edge Sports Pub and Holiday is the place to be. They got delicious food, great drinks, a lively atmosphere, and every play on one of the many big screens. You just can't beat it. Check out Canyon's Edge Sports Pub and tell them that OC sent you. Nate Orchard, the mayor of Sac Lake City, joins us next on ESPN 700. Checking in with the mayor of Sac Lake City on the Sean O'Connell Show. Nate Orchard stops by every week on a Thursday ahead of game day. He joins us now, brought to you by Advanced Window Products. Nate, what's up?
What's happening? How we doing?
Doing all right, man. Your thoughts on a big road trip? You start your Big 12 play at the University of Utah with not only a road trip, but a tough test in the Oklahoma State Cowboys at Boone Pickens Stadium, where it gets loud, it gets crazy, and it's going to be 100 degrees and humid. Your thoughts?
I mean, what better way to start out Big 12 play, right? To go into Stillwater, an environment with so much just rich history, and not to mention two of the longest tenured head coaches going at it, in an environment where you got over 50,000 people there. And it's going to be hostile, right? And that's nothing that's new to Utah, but just something, again, to look forward to that is just, again, change of scenery, but in a beautiful way to where you take in that rich history of what makes this college game so fun and so beautiful, and to be able to go from, the Mountain West to the Pac-12 and now the Big 12, the stadiums like this that really make this game beautiful and what we love every Saturday.
Nate, help me figure out what's going on with the Oklahoma State offense, because they brought back all their starting offensive linemen. They brought back the Doak Walker Award winner, and they can't run the football. They're putting up points and yards through the air. Alan Bowman's an experienced quarterback. He's also a seventh-year senior like Cam Rising is. But they can't run the football. Can you help me get to the bottom of why with the personnel that they've got?
That's always a head scratcher, and there's nothing more frustrating as a coordinator, as a group, offensive group, right? You bring back your guys up front. You have a quarterback that is reliable through and through, and has proven himself year after year. And in the ground game, right? It's Gordon as the featured back, right? With his experience, and you would hope that it'd be enough after coming off of a 1,700-yard season the year before, right? I think it's now just finding that identity again is the only way I can put it. And it's just going to be continuing to hand the ball off to your backs and trusting them. I think they have about 337, on the season as far as rushing yards. But just to continue to trust them, and as the season progresses, hoping that they can find their groove. But from the Utah standpoint, love that they're struggling, right? And you're going up against a defense that is no slouch. That's going to make it very difficult for them to find that rhythm that they need desperately. And that's where I think this matchup overall, our defense against their offense and our offense against their defense just makes for a perfect matchup as we start Big 12 play, as both sides of the ball, has their struggles from time to time as well.
Nate, give me and our listeners a sense of what it's like when you've got a leader on your offense or your defense who's questionable for the week, or maybe didn't have a good week of practice because he's dealing with an injury. We don't know 100% what Cam Rising's status is going to be. The expectation is that he will play. On the defensive side of the ball, your vocal leader, the guy who's the green dot effectively, who has the in-helmet communication, Corene Reed, we don't know if he's going to play. We have no indication on injuries, no injury report. It's not the NFL. But when you're a player in this defense and somebody like Corene Reed is either limited through the practice week or maybe he's out, we don't know. How does that affect you as a defensive player, as a guy on the D-line, as a pass rusher, as somebody playing behind him, when your leader, your vocal leader, might be out for the week?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Like you said, that is our leader. That's the captain of the defense. That is, the green dot guy who is going to be communicating with the D-line, with the backers, to the secondary, who's very well, experienced, who can identify formations quickly and get the proper communication and signals to the secondary, and shifting the front. It's important to have somebody like that. And, for us to sit here and say is one thing, but as a player and from a player perspective, you get a feel throughout the week, right? You head into that Monday practice, and in the meeting rooms, coaches are talking about it. So you kind of have an idea. And as the week progresses, more and more you see, okay, whoever's filling, that backup role as a communicator or filling in that position, will they play up to the standard? Only time will tell. And at the end of the day, and just like life, all you can control is what you can control. And so guys up front need to be worried about making sure they're lined up where they need to go and just let loose and play like their hair's on fire, and relying heavily on their technique and everybody doing their 1-11, right? If you have that one guy who's slouching off, it could hurt, but at the same time, is if everybody upholds their end and lightens the load for that individual, it makes it all that much sweeter. And with this Utah defense, they'll rally and bounce back, whoever may be playing that position if it isn't Corinne Reed.
Nate Orchard for a few more minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking Utah versus Oklahoma State. BYU's got Kansas State, which is a totally different test, but both of those teams have quarterbacks that can make your life difficult. Bowman is experienced. He's a more traditional drop-back passer. Avery Johnson is the best athlete on the field, is incredibly fast. So two different pass rush philosophies in guys like this. Bowman is not as escapable as a Cam Rising is. He's not certainly as escapable as the Kansas State quarterback is that BYU's got to deal with this week. But he's a guy who's experienced enough and savvy enough to know that he's going to get the ball out quickly. He's going to know when to feel that pressure and to sidestep, when to dump it off. How much more difficult does that make your job as a pass rusher when the quarterback is so experienced?
Yeah, if he's looking to get the ball out quick, and that comes with a week of preparation, understanding who the player is, his strengths, his weaknesses. As we know, if he likes to stay in the pocket, okay, we understand that. That's going to make pressing the middle of the pocket that much more important. Someone like Samote Pepa, Keanu Tanavasa, Junior Tafuna, the big guys in the middle, pressing and collapsing that pocket and forcing him out of his comfort zone. And then from there, the edges really collapsing and everyone really staying in your pass rush lanes and making that quarterback uncomfortable in the pocket. And then from there, most importantly, is just getting your hands up. It makes a big difference, if a quarterback has something coming across the middle or something short to the outside, if the defensive line can get their hands up and disrupt the pass and make it hard for the receiver and the quarterback to find those creases, it makes the life, again, for the backers and secondary a little bit better.
Looking at the overall kind of theme of this game, you mentioned it. You have two coaches that have been in their position for a very long time. In fact, they were hired like 2 weeks apart from one another. Mike Gundy's been there for 20 seasons at Oklahoma State as well. Charlie Dickey, former offensive line coach at the University of Utah, is now the O-line coach at Oklahoma State. I mean, he and Coach Ludd worked together and were friends and all that kind of stuff. There's so many commonalities between these two teams, even though they haven't played each other in the past. There's not like any history here, but it's like, for me, a battle of brothers, like that were separated at birth, and they've been raised the last 20 years by similar dads who don't know one another. They kind of try to do things the same way. Do you like when Utah plays a team that is like Utah, or do you like the matchup when it's, a finesse team versus Utah?
I like, a team that's like Utah in a lot of ways because, there is chatter throughout the building, in meeting rooms, and on the field where, if they're saying they're anything like us, well, let's show them they're not, and that's why. Again, between these two coaches, as we know, I like how you put it. They're brothers that didn't grow up together, but they have this history. Never really crossed paths, but now we're here. I think there's been obviously talk for years and years about these two coaches and their tenured at their universities, and so for them to now have this showdown, how can you not highlight it? And how can it not just stick at you as far as let's get the better of the opposing team? And so for Coach Witt, I'm sure his messaging to the team, probably may not be any different throughout the week, but there definitely is some juice behind it. And it's probably relayed to the staff, understanding how important this game is and the magnitude of it as to showing who's going to get the upper hand here.
On the Cam Rising situation, look, we have to stop doing this thing where it's, well, as long as Cam's there, everything's fine. Because, first of all, it's too much pressure to put on any one player. but also it elevates him to a status of just like, he doesn't make mistakes. Even Cam Rising makes mistakes, and he's only played 3.5 quarters so far this season. My assumption is that Cam is going to be available. He's going to get the start. He's going to be the quarterback for every down in this game. What do you need to see from Cam Rising? Because he's not all the way polished. He's not yet in midseason form.
Yeah, no, and I'll say this. I played this game long enough to understand that position specifically changes the outcome of the game, no matter what level you're at, from high school, college, or pros. I was in Cleveland for 3 years and had 10 different quarterbacks. And we had all stars at almost every position, from receivers to O-line, D-line. Defense was amazing. But when you don't have a quarterback that can lead a team confidently and with the experience, it makes it for a much harder game than needs be. And so even if Cam only's got, 4 of the 5 fingers, or maybe 3 of them, the 3 that he needs, we got to have him out there. And I know he could have played last week, and given the rest, hopefully he's doing a lot better. But you got to have your quarterback out there. And when you're playing that position, unfortunately, there is going to be pressure. It's like being a superhero, right? You have to answer the call. You got the bat signal out there. We need you to do your thing because the team depends on you. And unfortunately, now you got the landscape of NIL. There's higher expectations, and so the pressure is there. In that position specifically, I think Isaac did his thing last week and shown that he'd made leaps and bounds in that second half. But now you got your captain back out there, and he's got to go out and make the magic happen.
What's your prediction on this game? Are we looking at a Utah win comfortably? Is this one going to be close? How do you see it playing out?
I see this one going down to the wire, right? And I do see the impact of our defense having a big support in that. I have a feeling that we are going to get a defensive touchdown, and Michael Bernard is going to do his thing, and Cam is going to play a stellar game in a hostile environment, and the Utes are going to come away with the victory.
All right, we're in these unique Utah weather days. Yesterday at my house, the furnace got turned on in the morning and the air conditioner got turned on in the afternoon because it was real cold when we woke up, and then it heated up throughout the day. That is the exact time of year you need to know that your windows are right. Advanced Window Products has special deals for ESPN 700 listeners. Nate, tell us about them.
Yeah, for your listeners today, if you're considering changing out your windows to make it more energy efficient, or maybe you want to just increase the curb appeal, I ask that you please call us at Advanced Window Products. Our number is 801-850-9100. Again, 801-850-9100. And for your ESPN listeners, you'll receive a $3,000 off the purchase of 10 windows or more. And all you have to do is call and get on our schedule, right? It's a free consultation. We'll come out and do an audit of your current windows and let you know if it needs to be replaced, whether it's the full window or just glass. That's what we're here for. We love educated buyers. Allow one of our specialists to come out to your home and educate you on our product and show how we can transform your home from the inside out and keep your energy bills, your utility bills down, and making your home more energy efficient.
Don't wait, because that offer he just gave you is if you call today. It's $500 better than any other offer you're going to find. $3,000 off 10 windows or more. 801-850-9100 at Advanced Window Products. Nate, always great to hear from you. Thanks for your time.
Likewise. Thank you, brother. Have a good one.
The mayor of Sac Lake City, Nate Orchard. Advanced Window Products hooking you up. Also, great weather right now. Afternoons are beautiful, like I mentioned. Perfect weather to get out to the Salt Lake Bees games. This is the final homestand. After Sunday, you will not get to go see a Bees game at Smith's Ballpark. Text Bees to 33986 to win a pair of tickets to a Bees home game for this last homestand. That's Bees to 33986. Big shout out to Tony Parks, who hooked us up on the tickets yesterday.
Yeah, how was that last night?
It was gorgeous, man. I got a little sentimental.
Really?
I did. I've mentioned it before, I think many times on the show. I have had many a wonderful night at Smith's Ballpark. Like with my kids out there. That obviously changed a lot for me when I became a dad, and you get to take them out there, and it's a safe, family-friendly environment, and they got the playground in the outfield. They got the train in the outfield. You can let your kid run around on the grass and make friends and all that stuff. It's the cutest thing ever when you get a little kid in a baseball cap and you sit them down on one of those chairs that their little feet can't even touch the ground. And you get them a hot dog, and
I'm sure you've been there on, I think, Fridays and Saturdays when they let them run the bases after the game.
Yes,
too.
the fireworks nights. I mean, it's just, I've had a lot of really great nights, even before I was married and before I had kids. A lot of great nights with friends, and I used to go to the gym and train at night, and I'd be driving home to my house in the Avenues, and I'd be like, you know what? That game's still going on, and I'd go catch 3 innings of a game.
Nice.
And it's just a wonderful place to be in the summertime, and it's right in the heart of our city. I know it's not everyone's favorite area and things like that, but it's right in the heart of the city. It's across the street from my favorite place to eat in town. And yeah, man, I'm going to miss the place. I'm going to miss it. That the Bees, I'm sure that the Daybreak setup is going to be phenomenal.
The renderings look awesome.
And we're going to
the ones that have been released.
We're going to go out there to those games too, but it's not going to be a just on the whim 10-minute jaunt like it is now because of where I live. So, yeah, man, I'm gonna miss Bees game to Smith Ballpark for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking to go out to one, either tomorrow or maybe the last game of this season on Sunday, because they've got great deals going on. By the way, if anyone's looking for tickets, you don't have to just text in to 33986, text Bees to get tickets. They've got $5 tickets for the final game because that was the original ticket price in 1994 when Smith's Ballpark opened. They're going to let everyone do the post-game run around the bases that night too, not just the kids. So the last chance for just the kids is Friday and Saturday. But Sunday you'll get to run around the bases. They got the post-game fireworks show going on. So yeah, it's I'm looking to go out there. I didn't grow up in Salt Lake. I grew up in St. George, so I didn't get to go to that many Bees games growing up, so I don't have many memories that way. I do remember going to some Buzz games.
Oh yeah,
back when they were the Buzz.
Oh yeah.
But been to a few since we moved up here, and it's a shame that the ballpark's just going to close down because it really is a great spot to go, and the scenery's incredible. But as you said, we'll turn the page next year, and I'm sure everyone will have an incredible time out in Daybreak at the new stadium.
The only foul ball I've ever caught at a baseball game,
Smith's Ballpark.
Smith's Ballpark. There was a kid with me though. I had to give it to the kid.
Oh,
yeah. Got to do it. Got to do it.
Pretend that they caught it.
You can't be that guy.
No.
Can't be that person who just pockets it and walks away.
This is mine. Catch your own ball. You can just do that.
All right, I put some poll questions out earlier today. Will Cam Rising start the game against Oklahoma State? Have some results on that one for you. What do you think the game is going to look like in Stillwater against the Cowboys? Low-scoring slugfest, high-scoring shootout. Utes win easily, Cowboys win easily. I'll give you the percentages on the poll as that poll continues at Real OC Sports if you want to get out to the old social medias and vote on the poll. We'll talk a little bit more about this matchup, this game, this Big 12 conference debut for the Utes. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. All right, some simple and direct poll questions today, and then one that I guess you have to give context to because it has nothing to do with sports. But first, will Cam Rising start the game against Oklahoma State? Remember, we don't get a lot of injury details by design. Kyle Whittingham and the staff at the University of Utah are trying to protect their state secrets. You're not even really allowed to ask about injuries because the policy has been clearly stated. If you get some secret knowledge, you're not really allowed to talk about it because you can lose your credential. We genuinely don't know. Like, if the expectation is that Cam Rising plays, and that is the expectation, none of us will be surprised when he walks out there fully dressed. He did that in Logan on Saturday. If Cam Rising walks out fully dressed, is throwing pregame and is running plays pregame and is working behind center with the ones pregame, and then Isaac Wilson runs out there for the first series, everyone's going to go nuts. And by the way, the line in Vegas, I think right now is based on the assumption that Cam Rising is going to play. I think a lot of the movement we've seen back and forth this week has been certainty that he's going to play, and then, wait, maybe not. A narrative of like, yeah, he's fine. And then a narrative maybe shifting to, well, we have to wait and see. And, of course, everyone's gun shy from last year. So, James Peterson.
It was wild watching the line jump back and forth last night in particular.
So, James, I don't know if you responded to the poll. Will Cam Rising start the game against Oklahoma State in Stillwater at Boone Pickens Stadium at 3 o'clock local time in the heat? Yes, he's fine. No, we wait.
Yes, he's fine. I said yes. The indication that we got, and again, as you mentioned, we don't get very much indication, but the indication we got all of last week was it's not serious. And those that were a little bit more in the know said that if it were a Big 12 championship game, if it were a playoff game, he'd probably play. But whether or not that second part is true, we don't know for sure. But the first part, we heard Witt say it's not serious. So that just told me all last week they feel like one of the last games on their schedule that they can win without Cam Rising was at Utah State last week. So they were going to be very cautious about it. Let him sit one more week. Have him for sure be ready by Oklahoma State. So, and nothing that I've heard, nothing that we've seen has made me feel like the plan has changed. So that's where I'm going with it.
I don't like to validate this conspiracy type, attitude from the coaching staff because I wish we just got more clear answers. So I don't like to be like, well, yeah, you're doing the right thing here, but I've been paying attention to the Oklahoma State side of things, the Cowboy message boards, and I listened to I guess the podcast of a coach's show and things like that, and read a couple of articles. Nobody there knows if Cam Rising is going to play definitively either. They're in the exact same boat as all Utah fans are right now. Yeah, we think he's going to play, but we're not sure. Now, that doesn't matter from a fan perspective, but that matters a hell of a lot if you're an Oklahoma State coach.
Yeah, and we heard the stories about the UCLA game last year in particular where UCLA was legitimately caught off guard that Cam did not play because Utah did their best decoy thing. They had Cam out throwing on the field before the game. They did what they're doing so far this year. They're not saying anything one way or the other, whether he's playing with any certainty that he's playing or not. And it led to a really good tangible advantage for Utah in that UCLA game. So there you can see the merits of doing it, but on the other hand, it's like knowing beforehand and having a bit of a certainty of whether or not your starting quarterback is playing is not going to be the reason you win or lose a game. So can we just have some clarity on it, please?
Well, it might If the margins are thin enough, it might be the reason. And here's the thing. Oklahoma State is trying to find its defensive identity now without one of their 3 best players. I think he's their best player, but he's definitively one of their 3 best players on defense in this game. They are 16th in the conference in pass defense. They are 13th in the conference in run defense. They are bad. They're 10th in the conference in scoring defense. They're not good right now on the defensive side of the ball. Now, if you're practicing, you're going, all right, here's what Utah does. Well, what Utah does, the answer to that, the finishing of that statement, here's what Utah does, is really different if it's Isaac Wilson or it's Cam Rising. Here's what Utah does offensively is something that you want to have to prepare for the Isaac Wilson offense. Even though that's going to expand and that's going to grow and that's going to be better, if you're a defensive coordinator at Oklahoma State or any other team in the Big 12 Conference, by the way, you want to say, here's what Utah does offensively. Cut on this tape from Utah State. Cut on this tape from Southern Utah at the tail end. Cut on this tape from Baylor in the second half. That's what Utah does offensively. That's what's available to them. If you think it's going to be Cam Rising, you say, here's what Utah does offensively. And suddenly, instead of that little like Goosebumps chapter book, you're talking about the Silmarillion here.
Yeah.
It gets big. It gets complicated. There's a lot of different looks. And it's not just because of Cam Rising's ability. It's because of his presence. We have seen the confidence that comes into this offense when he's there. So you're saying, like, all right, yeah, not only is it Cam Rising who's going to be doing this, who's going to be reading your disguised blitz, and he's better at that than Isaac Wilson is because, of course, but also the tight end's going to run the route harder. The offensive line, for whatever reason, blocks better. Water is more delicious and refreshing. We don't know why. We haven't been able to figure it out. Cam, I asked him. He said, I don't think I do anything special, but he does.
There's something special he's doing.
There's something different when it's Cam Rising. So now if you're the defensive staff at Oklahoma State, you're looking at it, and you're going like, oh, geez. If you're Joe Bob Clements, which is an all-time name on that staff.
Real guy.
That's a man.
Real coach.
A real coach on the Oklahoma State staff. Linebackers coach. Name is Joe Bob Clements. Helps coordinate the rush defensive looks. Joe Bob. If you're Joe Bob, you're just like, dadgummit, what am I doing here?
Joe Bob's, you just know that's how he talks.
There's absolutely no
guy named
chance.
Joe Bob definitely talks like that.
The percentage that he does not have an accent with the name Joe Bob Clements is 0. He 1,000,000% has an accent.
And it says dadgummit? Absolutely.
Yes. Absolutely. So, look, does he play? I think yes. If he doesn't, it's a different game for both teams. Significantly different for both teams.
It really is. And by the way, Andy Ludwig told us it's a different game plan. When Isaac Wilson, which I loved his honesty in that in the coordinator's corner from earlier this week, you asked him, how different is it when you were preparing with Isaac Wilson versus when you know you have Cam Rising? He's like, it's different.
Yeah, it's different.
There's less plays that we run with Isaac than we do with Cam.
That's just the wristband on the on the wrist, on the left wrist of the quarterback with the laminated thing.
Yeah.
And the little tiny
there's some empty rows in there with Isaac.
The size 6 font. Like that's a different wristband.
Maybe it's bigger font on Isaac's than it is with Cam.
You know what I'd love to see one time? Just a quarterback trot out there, and he's got like giant legible font. Yes. Got like the same font that your parents use on their cell phone, because when you get older, you have to turn up the size on the letters.
You only get to one play, son.
There's four plays on that wristband. Okay. Anyway, that's one of the poll questions. 77%, almost 80%. Say that, yes, Cam Rising is fine. He's going to play. He's going to start. All right, what do you think the game is looking like in Stillwater against Oklahoma State? Low-scoring slugfest, high-scoring shootout. Utah wins easily, or Oklahoma State wins easily. 2.8% of the vote are favoring the Oklahoma State Cowboys
so
right now.
We've got one Oklahoma State fan listening. Welcome.
Utah wins easily, 18.5%, almost 19%. Say Utah will win this game easily, which is not outside the realm of possibility. When you look at some of the struggles that Oklahoma State has had. I know they have the home field advantage. I know that they've got an experienced quarterback, but their best player has yet to get going this year. Their best player on defense is out. They've got a young secondary that has been exploited, and they've been bend, but don't break. Utah's got the talent that they could make you break. High-scoring shootout, which, of course, alludes to both teams scoring a bunch of points, or the low-scoring slugfest. That, to me, James, is more like, are these teams what we think of them big picture, or are these teams in 2024 what we have seen a little bit more from them, or what they aspire to be in 2024 in a modern Big 12? Because through the tenure of Mike Gundy and of Kyle Whittingham in their respective 20 years, it's low-scoring slugfest. Like, just close your eyes, throw something at the wall. An Oklahoma State ideal scenario is a low-scoring slugfest, and same is true for Utah. And when those two teams match up, of course. But more recently, Oklahoma State has been successful in the passing game, maybe buttering their bread through the air. And for Utah, I mean, they've got better pass-catching options than they've ever had. Even if it's the backup quarterback, the best version of him, which we saw in the second half against Utah State, kid's got a live arm and some accuracy. So it could be either. Right now, high-scoring shootout is winning in that poll. 46% of the votes coming in that this is going to be a high-scoring shootout.
Basically, 97% are saying anything other than Cowboys win easily.
Yes.
Like I said, shout out to the one Oklahoma State fan who follows us on Twitter.
And look,
and maybe is listening to the show.
Almost 80% of the fans think that this is going to be a close game.
Yeah. So
which,
there you go.
On paper, it looks like it will be. You got 12 in the country versus 14 in the country. You got a team that was picked to win the conference versus the team that was picked to be third in the conference in the preseason. I mean, this is that battle of brothers that I was talking about.
I voted high scoring shootout.
Okay.
That's what I voted there. I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way.
By the way, Alan Bowman is also a seventh-year quarterback.
Yeah. Did you hear Ian Fitzsimmons on with Spence yesterday on the drive?
I didn't hear it.
ESPN Radio's Ian Fitzsimmons said the combined age of these two quarterbacks is 49.
Uh-huh.
The combined age of Caleb Williams and C.J. Stroud, the Sunday Night Football, one of the players is in his second year in the NFL.
44?
44. You got it. You nailed it. 5 years older combined than two players that are in the NFL right now.
By the way, a very important distinction between Alan Bowman and Cam Rising. If you go look up Cam Rising's stats, he is entering his fourth year as an active player.
Yeah.
All right? Because of transfer, red shirt, injury.
Plus a quarter in 2020.
This is 4 years of gameplay for Cam Rising. Alan Bowman has stats every year since 2018.
Okay. So he is legitimately playing in his seventh year. Seventh year of playing.
Correct.
Wow.
The man has put up big numbers as a freshman. He had 17 touchdowns and 2,600 yards in 2018. 69% completion percentage. In 2019, he was limited. Left that season because of injury. 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, but still 66% completion. 2020 doesn't count, but he played. 2021 and 2022, he barely played a single game in each of those. And then 2023, he threw 500 for 3,400 yards, 15 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. 2023 was not a great year for him in the passing game. And again, Oklahoma State, with this quarterback, this offensive line, and this running back, basically said, all right, we're just going to run the ball for victories now. This year, they're doing the opposite thing. A year later, they're doing the opposite thing.
It's going to be fascinating. I am genuinely shocked at the results of your last poll. Are you looking at that?
So I put out a poll about who would you rather have be a big fan of yours, Frank from American Pickers or Coach Prime, because Cam Rising, on the Rising Report, he found out that Deion Sanders is a big fan of his. And I, at one point in my life, found out that Frank from American Pickers was a fan of mine.
And
or at least he knew who I was.
And I apparently, like an idiot, alluded to the fact that Coach Prime's going to run away with this poll.
Right now, 60-40, 60% of people would rather have Frank from American Pickers be a big fan of them.
That's got to be that's got to be the anti-Colorado Deion stuff playing a lot into that. Or
yes. Or it just is a testament to the great taste of our listener base.
They're watching American Pickers.
They love American Pickers, and they love a good barn find.
And they love Frank in particular on American Pickers.
Love it. All right. Spence Checketts in the building?
I cannot confirm whether he is or not, but
I hope we'll
I think we're planning on crosstalk with Spence Checketts. Sometimes he rolls in a couple minutes before. That might be the case today. We'll see.
All right. So all of you who are not going to the game, you have to have a good spread of food for game day. It's right smack dab in the middle of your day. It's a perfect time to barbecue. It's a perfect time to have a great lunch. The weather here in Salt Lake City is going to be fantastic, and only one place you need to get to for great deals, best selection of food and beverages that will go perfectly with whatever you want to do while watching that football game. That, of course, is Smith's. Remember to use the Smith's app and download the digital coupons, too. It's super easy. You can score huge deals with their digital coupons. $600 savings every week, by the way, with those digital coupons. So if you're stocking up on fresh stuff for your tailgate party, or you're inviting a few friends over to watch an away game like this one, the Smith's app is the easiest way to save on all the great food and drinks you need. Smith's, by the way, the official grocer of the Utah Utes. Crosstalk, we'll wrap it up next on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700. Up here on the Sean O'Connell Show, getting you ready for the drive with Spence Checketts. Crosstalk is always brought to you by Ineos Grenadier. Schedule your test drive today. The Grenadier, it's a head turner of a car, man. If you are an off-road type person, like I know Spence is, like Porter Larson certainly is, this is a capable, stripped-down, utilitarian SUV. You need it. You want it. 2400 South, 5600 West in West Valley at the Warner dealership. Ineos Grenadier. They got the full slate. All the makes and not all the makes, all the models, all the colors, everything you need.
You remember your boy changed a tire not too long ago.
Yeah.
In under 30 minutes.
It's amazing.
Without calling AAA.
Yeah.
I'll go off-roading anytime, man.
All right.
Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you. What's coming up on the drive?
All football. Robert Turbin, right out of the gates, who called the Utah State-Utah game. We're going to do the big show, big hour with Bowler and Monson. Maybe some picks today, maybe not. I haven't decided. I'll probably hold those until tomorrow. Utah Hockey Club, we'll do a little bit of that. We're only 8 days away. Aaron Roderick, BYU offensive coordinator. And, get you ready for a busy college football weekend. Look ahead to a little NFL tonight.
All right, I put a poll question out today.
Oh, yeah?
That I want to know your answer to.
Okay.
Who would you rather have be a big fan of Spence Checketts? Coach Prime or Frank from American Pickers?
I don't know who the second guy is.
Oh, okay. Well, how about this? This is a better question.
Okay.
Because you're a man of some notoriety.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think.
Who is like the coolest person that you were like, oh, you listen to my show? Oh, thank you.
Oh,
like,
that's a good question.
Who's like the one that impressed you the most that they were aware of you?
Whew.
When I was working in the Bay Area, Chris Mullen.
That's badass.
Listen to my show.
Because I'm an old school St. John's guy. Love Mully.
I had no idea he listened to the show. About halfway through my tenure there, my co-host got a text. It was just like, oh, Mullen doesn't like what you just said about the Niners. I was like, Chris Mullen listens to the show?
That's really cool.
So that was cool. Also, Frank from American Pickers, History Channel show. It's wonderful.
Okay.
Anyway, I ran into him in a fight, and I was like, hey, I'm a big fan of your show. He's like, dude, I loved watching you fight. And I was like, oh, Frank knows who I am.
That's pretty cool. I'd have to think about that. So in response to the poll question, Prime, because I don't know the other guy.
Okay, that's fine. A more salient poll question, because this is a sports talk radio station.
Sir.
What kind of game are we in for in Stillwater? Slugfest, high-scoring shootout, easy win for either team. What do you think?
So this is, I'm going to say the simplest thing possible. There's so much noise about Cam. I don't know what the deal is. The line moving last night is weird. I'm convinced now, because I went back last night. I watched OK State last week. Their offensive line was being pushed off the ball by a much weaker D line than what they'll see this week against Utah. OK State has given up 25 chunk plays this year. That's third in the country. I think if Cam plays, I'm starting to feel like Utah actually wins pretty comfortably.
All right. I like that.
Yeah.
So Spence would be on board with the Utah wins comfortably, which is right now is 20% of the vote.
Okay.
So you're not alone.
You think Cam's playing? Yeah, I mean, that's all the intel I have.
We had the Rising report. I asked him directly, and he said, yeah, I'm planning on playing, but we know how that goes.
Yeah, the line movement last night was odd.
All right. Stay tuned for the drive with Spence Checketts. It's a jam-packed show. Everyone who joined me today, Cam Rising, Eric Weddle, Nate Orchard, always appreciate it. Thanks to all of you for listening. That's all for the Sean O'Connell Show. It's your home of the Utes, ESPN 700.